Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft Blog live stream. Rob staying with you here to reflect on day one of the NFL Scouting Combine. Get your questions in. If you send them as a super chat, I will definitely get to your questions. But if you send some questions in generally, I'm happy to ask some of those as well. But yeah, if you want to help support the channel, if you want to make sure that you get a question or if you want to make a point about anything that you've seen today, send them in as a super chat. And I will basically do this live stream until all of the super chats and all of the questions have gone. So get them sent in. Just a solo one today. Robbie Williams is going to be at Lucas Oil Field on Saturday and Sunday, and he will join us after those two sessions to give us a perspective from inside the arena. Should be really useful as well, given that he's going to be there for the quarterbacks of the combine. But we've had defensive linemen, we've had linebackers. I'm going to run through all of the results, all of the things that I think are important. I'm going to run through potential Seahawks targets. I might even do sort of like a little rundown of picks 1 to 17 and what I'm thinking right now. And then I want to finish with some thoughts on what John Schneider has said today about Geno Smith. So give us all of your thoughts on all of that. Like I say, get your super chats coming in, get your questions coming in, and I will get through as many of them as possible. Right, first things first, I just want to run through who, for me, were the winners today. And I'm sure that people will chuck out other names and will say, you know, what about this guy? What about that guy? This is just who, for me personally, I feel like, you know, they were the big winners on the day for different reasons. It's not just because they ran well or anything like this. There's a lot of different reasons why I'm going to list these players. So James Pierce Jr. ran very quick, looked very smooth. I think with the numbers that he had in terms of run stop responsibility, he was right up there with the Boston College pass rusher, who's also going to be on my day one winners. I think the fact that he has that sort of run evidence behind him for the season, that was one of the big doubts about him. To then see him run a 4.47 was incredibly impressive. It is one of the faster times. Only 9 edge rushers have run a faster time at the combine than James Pierce Jr. since 2003, which is basically where the records go back to. So if you're in the top 10 for a 40-yard dash, if you are going to run an elite 10-yard split, I know that Daniel Jeremiah was saying that like 1.62 or something is an elite 10-yard split. I've always felt a 1.5. Anything in the 1.5s is an elite 10-yard split, and James Pierce Jr. ran a 1.56. So for me, I think a top 16 pick off the back of this, unless there are some unforeseen things that we can't talk about here, then, and we don't have knowledge of, I don't see any reason why James Pierce Jr. is not going to go in the first half of round one. So he's a big winner. Olu Oladejo from UCLA. Didn't run a 40, but my word, when he was going through those drills today, he just looked so impressive. It just built like an absolute machine. And yet, despite his enormous size, there was no real stiffness to him at all. His change of direction was fantastic. He did pretty much every drill at a very high level. The moments where you have to cut and change direction abruptly, when you have to go in and out of the bags and then turn right at the end and then finish to a final bag, which is a quarterback. I just think he was sensational today. And it's very hard to look at some of these other defensive linemen that worked out and then look at Oladejo, the UCLA guy, and think, how is this guy going to last out of the top 50? He's not. And I noticed that Mel Kiper put him at the end of the first round. Now, whether or not you can put him in the first round, having not run a 40 yet, and presumably he's going to do that at the UCLA Pro Day, I'm not sure. But just on how he looks, you know, Daniel Jeremiah was saying that everyone was calling him the mayor at the Senior Bowl because he was the guy. At one point, I think they were telling the rest of the players as Oladejo was preparing to do his rep on a certain drill, you've got to run to the numbers or something. Or was it like you've got to run and place the bag down or something on the figure 8 drill? And the coach is relaying this, and Oladejo turned around to the rest of the guys and was like, you've got to do this. And he's like barking out the instructions as well. And teams are going to love this guy. Teams are going to love Olu Oladejo. And I thought he was fantastic during drills today. And he just looks the part. It looks like an absolute machine. Talking to people who look like an absolute machine, Landon Jackson jumped extremely well. Moved better than expected around some of the some of the drills today. I think the problem with him on tape has always been that he's a little bit stiff, rushing the edge. And yeah, I thought he ran okay. And when he was doing those drills, I thought he was pretty good. And then you have to mention Shamar Stewart. He didn't do any of the drills because of a hamstring injury, but he ran a 1.58 10-yard split at about 260 pounds. Again, that's an elite 10-yard split. Jackson and Stewart are the only edge rushers who are 260 pounds or heavier to jump a 40-inch vertical since 2003, apart from Myles Garrett and Mario Williams. So if you are going to be sort of put in a list with two other players, two former first-round picks, Myles Garrett as a generational player, Mario Williams was an excellent pass rusher for a long, long time, both first overall selections. It's great company for those two to be in. So Shamar Stewart is a winner today. It would have been great to see him do drills. We didn't get that opportunity, but the way that he ran, the way that he jumped, it's impressive. Ty Robinson. Now, during the drills, you have to say that Ty Robinson showed an element of stiffness and that his change of direction is not quite there. But everything else was absolutely fantastic. You know, he ran a great 40, ran the fastest 40-yard dash amongst all of the defensive tackles. He had the quickest miles per hour. The testing that now on the runs. He was quicker than everybody else in terms of miles per hour. He ran a 4.50 short shuttle, which for his size is really, really good. It's a tick in the box for him for that. His explosive testing was excellent, especially his broad jump was superb. It's just, you know, if you want a guy who is going to be incredible high character, who is going to be quick and forceful, who can play across the line, who's going to give you absolutely everything on every down, that's Ty Robinson. And now that he's gone to the combine and shown that there's a degree of athleticism there, I mean, people have been sleeping on him. Everybody's been talked about as a second-round pick on the defensive line. You know, Dan and Jeremiah was saying that Joshua Farmer is going to go in the top half of round 2. Not on that performance today, he's not. Ty Robinson is somebody who's got a much better chance of going earlier than Joshua Farmer, based on what we saw today. And I think he's been slept on. I think he will go in the second round. I think there's a whole bunch of teams that are going to love him. He's an AFC North kind of player. He would fit in the Seahawks. I thought he had a great day. I thought amongst the edge rushers who worked out, I'm going to butcher his name because I always do, Donovan Eze-Ruaku from Boston College didn't run, which is a shame because that is a question that he needs to answer moving forward, because speed it is a vital thing, especially that split for edge rushers. But during the drills, I thought he looked pretty good. And then he pulls out a 4.19 short shuttle, and I think he ran a 6.94 3-cone. And these are really, really impressive times. You know, a 4.19 short shuttle, just to give you a sort of comparison there, Khalil Mack and Clay Matthews ran a 4.18. Harold Landry is probably a better comparison for the Boston College edge rusher. He ran a 4.19 as well. His run stop responsibility percentage was very, very good. It was right up there. And when you watch the tape, he uses his length very well. He's got powerful hands. He can set the edge and defend the run. It'll get him on the field quickly as a rookie. He has got a variety of pass rush moves. I don't think you ever watch him on tape and think, wow, I'm amazed by his athleticism. But the fact that he can run a 4.19 short shuttle shows there's something there. You know, that's the kind of time that the really best edge rushers, they have to show a bit of that. They have to show that agility and that quickness off the edge. So he showed that today, and I think he's probably someone that a lot of people I don't even realize that the short shuttle times have been announced because they got announced so late in the day. But a 4.19 short shuttle for him is excellent, and I'm putting him amongst the winners today. He's going to be a first-round pick, I'm telling you now. Two other players I want to mention. Jihad Campbell just looked better than all of the other linebackers. He just looked more athletic, smooth, effortless, really, how much athleticism that he has. And his times were very, very good. Roquan Smith ran a 4.51 at 236 pounds. Jihad Campbell ran a 4.52 at the same weight. And, you know, you look at the splits were almost identical of Roquan Smith, but the difference between the two of them is Jihad Campbell is far more explosive than Roquan Smith. And they're not the same kind of players. You know, Roquan's more that conventional middle linebacker. Jihad Campbell is someone who can rush the edge a little bit there. But, you know, he's explosive. He's quick. He looks the part. He slimmed down for the combine. You could notice that. It wasn't quite as jacked as he was during the 2024 season for Alabama, but just a really good player. I want to come back to him in a bit because he is somebody who I think could be a real option for the Seahawks, and he may not make it to 18, but I want to talk about that a little bit later on. And then the other player I wanted to raise here, and again, other people will throw names my way, and please do in the comments if you've got any points you want to make. If you've got a question, send them in. At the minute, we've got 2 questions. So if you send them in, I will get to your questions. And if you super chat them, I promise I definitely will get to them. We've had one of those already. I'm going to come to that in a second. Demetrius Knight ran a lot quicker than expected. Good testing to match the tape and the character. You know, the thing with Demetrius Knight is you watch South Carolina, and most weeks he would do something. He was just an impact player, playmaker. The way the Clemson game ended with him making the big play. There's just so many moments like that, and it would have been great to see South Carolina in the playoffs because they were catching fire right at the end of the year. And I love his backstory. I love what the journey he's taken to the NFL. And you just thought, well, he makes plays, high character, loves the game, exceptional football character, just around the ball all the time. But how is he going to test? And then to turn up and test how he did, you know, he's not at Jihad Campbell level, but I'll run through the numbers in a bit. I thought he did much better than expectations. And therefore, he is somebody who, it wouldn't shock me because I was kind of looking at this. There's quite a few players, like Alfred Collins is another one, who didn't perform very well today. And they're players that I've assumed and others have assumed are going to go in round 2. And if they're not going to go in round 2 anymore, somebody's going to go and fill their void. And the likes of Demetrius Knight could definitely go and fill a void in round 2. So I thought he had a fantastic workout today for him. Like for what was expected of him to go and perform the way he did, I think was very, very impressive. So there were the guys for me that I thought really stood out. I'm sure that you will have others. There are definitely others who perform well. I'm going to bring up the results. The combine, I've got this great little graphic that they've created on NFL.com today. I'll put that up on the screen in a bit and we'll run through everything. But got a couple of super chats. This one from Nick. Does the D-line depth make you think that John Schneider will prioritize other positions in the first round? If so, where is the biggest cliff in terms of talent from first to second round? Is it safety or quarterback? Thanks for your hard work. Thanks for super chat, Nick. I think they're going to just prioritize best player available. I think they are going to try and address their biggest need, which is the offensive line in free agency. And I think they will just take the best player. And that could be any position, frankly. I think that's just what they've decided their philosophy is now. I think it's a good one. I think it's helped them avoid any busts in the first 2 rounds over the last few years. And I think that's what you've got to do. If you can fix that offensive line in free agency and then go and just add the best player that's available to you, that's your best way to take a step forward next year. So I don't think it's a case of, oh, look, the D-line options are good. If the best player is a defensive lineman, they're going to take him. I don't think they're going to go, well, we can get a different defensive lineman later on. Let's take this lesser player. So I think that's what it will be. In terms of the biggest cliff in terms of talent from first to second round, I think it's probably offensive line. I think you have basically got a small number of offensive linemen early in the first round that you could justify taking. Then you've got a big cliff to probably those options that are late third, fourth, fifth. So I think it's offensive line. So that's why it's really important that they sort of solve the issue of the offensive line in free agency. Because if they get to the draft and they haven't fixed it and they're banking on someone lasting to 18 who's good and not wanting to have to reach for anything, that's going to be a problem for them. So they need to get the offensive line sorted in free agency. But the sad thing is because Trey Smith has gone off the board, he's been tagged by the Chiefs. I've got a little feeling that maybe the Chiefs just think if the demand is so high for this guy, because nobody expects them to tag Trey Smith, I think they've got to the combine and have realized that pretty much every other team in the NFL wants this guy. And I think they've tagged him because they may just go, right now, we're going to, if you want Trey Smith, you've got to come through us. I think that's what their approach will be. We can talk to him. We've got an exclusive window now to negotiate an extension. That's probably why they've done it. They probably think the franchise tag at $23 million, he's probably going to get more than that. I've been saying for a few weeks now, he's going to get about $25 million a year. He might get receiver money. And if he is going to get receiver money, then 23 million or whatever the tag is, that's smaller. So you either keep him for 1 year, you have plenty of time to negotiate with him, or if other teams really want him, they've now got to come for you and make a trade. So I think it's a smart move by the Chiefs. I don't think that one's over yet, but the fact that he's come off the board now, it's not a problem because I thought the Seahawks were going to sign him. It's a problem because now all of the teams that were perhaps going to be willing to spend money on him are going to take all of that money and they're going to try and sign somebody else. So now somebody else's market's going to go boom. Or somebody else who you would have wanted, Drew Dalman, for example, might end up going to a team like the Bears who are primed to sort of make a run on Trey Smith. And they think, right, well, where are we going to spend the money now? Okay, we'll give it to Drew Dalman. There was a bit of a talk over the weekend earlier in the week, that Drew Dalman might get 20 million a year. I don't think that's out of the question now, because if Trey Smith's gone, the money's going to be burning a hole in pockets of teams with rookie quarterbacks like the Bears, and they're just going to throw it at Drew Dalman. So the whole situation becomes harder for the Seahawks now. So what they do in terms of getting offensive linemen, I haven't got a clue. And I've got a clue. I think it might be more likely to be Ryan Kelly than Drew Dalman. And they've got to fix this somehow. They've got to fix this offensive line before they get to the draft. Otherwise, they're going to be reaching for need. Anyway, Nick, thank you for that. Ace Amazing 47 says, love your work, Rob. How do these defensive linemen compare as prospects compared to Maffei and Hall? Are there players that could be clear upgrades over them? Well, the thing about Maffei and Hall is they're good players. They're not great players. They're players that I think are in a rotation that are very useful. But I don't think either of them are game wreckers. And that's what the Seahawks need. The Seahawks don't need another Maffei and Hall. And I think when I look at a lot of these defensive linemen in the draft, they just give me a whiff of Maffei and Hall. So the Boston College pass rusher I think, is a good player. I don't know if he's noticeably better than Maffei and Hall. And, you could say, well, take a chance on Shamar Stewart, who's got different physical tools to Maffei and Hall, given his size. But then he doesn't finish, and I kind of think, yeah, okay, it's a risk. And I know a lot of people are going to go, oh, who cares? Take a risk, the size, the frame. Yeah, but he doesn't finish, and he was spelled a lot at Texas A&M, and that worries me a little bit. And then, James Pierce, I don't think he's going to be there for Seattle, but has he had the kind of production you're looking for? I mean, his pass rush win percentage is good. He's 4.47 speed. He's a bit quicker. Is he a game wrecker, though, or is he another rotational guy? And I think that's what you have to look for. Is there a difference maker other than Abdul Carter, who is an edge rusher? And I'm not sure that the answer is yes. So I think you can perhaps add another one of those. I like Braden Swinson, by the way. I think Braden Swinson's very good. I think he's different. He's got heavy hands, forceful. But even that, I really like Swinson, but I'm not sure that he's necessarily going to be a massive upgrade over Maffei and Hall. So I think the answer is that, are there clear upgrades? I'm not sure there are. But thank you for that super chat. Much appreciated. And this one from Corey. Thank you, Corey. Says, given the Jenkins news, I believe Eman Wari is a prime target now. I wouldn't connect the dots there. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to cut Rayshon Jenkins because no one is trading for him. He's too old. He's too expensive. No one's going to trade him. I don't know why. There must be a reason why they're just saying, "Oh, go and find a trade," rather than just outright cutting him. But that, to me, feels like in about 3 days' time, he's not going to be on the Seahawks anymore. They're going to cut him. They're going to save the money. He's not going to get traded, and I don't think the fact that he goes automatically makes Eman Wari a prime target. I think will Eman Wari be a name that they are intrigued by? I'm sure, because his tape's good. He's big. He's athletic. We've been saying since probably about 3 or 4 games into the college football season that he could be a Kyle Hamilton type of player. I don't think he's Cam. I mean, no one's ever going to be Cam. Might have Cam's size, but Cam was an absolute destroyer of souls, and Eman Wari's not, and hardly any players are. It's a unique thing that the Seahawks got Cam Chancellor and Marshawn Lynch both on the same roster at the same time, because that's, they're both so incredible in terms of physical toughness, tone setting, culture setting, and everything. You're never going to get another player like that. So I think Emin Wari's expected to test brilliantly. I still think top 20 is a bit too high for him, but I think he's probably a 25 to 35 type of talent. I'm not sure he's going to be a prime target. I think he might just be a possibility, but I would think they might trade down first if they're going to go in that direction. But I feel that way about a lot of players they're getting talked about with. So anyway, there we go. That's all the super chats for now. I will. There are one or two other questions I might come to, but if I'm going to prioritize super chats for now, just because it helps support the channel, and I want to get into this and share the screen with you. So here we go. These are the combined results. I'm just going to go through the names that I want to talk about. So Darius Alexander, very interesting player, had a great Senior Bowl. We kind of talked about the way that he ran the edge against Josh Connolly and beat him off the edge at left tackle, which is incredible, and was winning inside as well. And you do want to sort of make that comparison to, well, he looks a bit like Chris Jones when he was doing that. And he did. And he actually ran a faster 40 than Chris Jones. Chris Jones ran a 5:03. And as you can see here, Darius Alexander ran a 4:95. So very good time. He's also more explosive than Chris Jones, 31.5 inch vertical and 9.3 broad. Chris Jones had a 29.5 inch vertical and only an 8.10 broad. So more explosive, but it's the quickness and the agility where he suffers. So Chris Jones on a 4.62 short shuttle and a 7.443 cone. You can see here that he ran a 4.79 and a 7.60. So that's probably why Darius Alexander's not going to be Chris Jones, because of that agility testing. But still a fair enough day for Darius Alexander. I do not think that this is a day that is going to propel him from second round to first round. That's not going to happen off the back of today. But what it probably does is secures his place in round 2. I think somebody will take a chance on him. I'm not totally convinced it will be the Seahawks necessarily. I don't think it's out of the question that he could be an option at 50. But I kind of get the feeling they're going to re-sign Jarran Reed, and that might be that for defensive tackle. If they're going to add somebody else, it might be later on. I'm not sure they're going to go that way in round 2, but or round 1 for that matter. But reasonable day. Agility testing not amazing. Who do we want to talk about next? Jamari Colwell. I thought he'd moved quite well in the drills. Obviously, a 5.16 at his weight, which was 332 pounds, is a good time. 27-inch vertical. You don't expect a big vertical from somebody that size. Would have been nice to see him do a bit more than that, but reasonable from him, and he moved around well. Alfred Collins, bit of a disaster from him today. To come in, he was very heavy at 332 pounds. A 26-inch vertical and an 8 broad is not good enough, and that is not a second round set of tests. So he is not going to go in the second round. And I'd really struggle to take him in the third round with that level of weak testing, frankly. I mean, that's poor. He was always someone who you expected to be better at Texas. It kind of, the light came on a little bit last season, but even then he wasn't blowing anybody up on the defensive line. So I think that's a poor from him. Howard Cross, it was good to see him out there doing some jumps, but that was it, really. Joshua Farmer promised a lot. He said he was going to have a great combine. A 29-inch vertical, a 9-foot broad, a 5'11" at 305 pounds, and no agility testing. He's hardly setting the world alight from Joshua Farmer. So I think any talk of him in round 2 is probably a little premature, and that's probably going to go by the wayside now. I thought Derek Harmon had a good workout. I thought he moved very, very well. I mean, he's a big guy. He's 313 pounds, 6'4.5", big hands. You like to see that. Good arm length, 34.5-inch arms, really good length, good size. A 4.95 40 at that size is good. Not an elite 10-yard split by any stretch. Didn't do anything else in terms of testing, which is a shame. But that's a good time from him. I think definitely from this kind of grading here and looking at the rest of the board, how I've been assuming it's going to be, I think that gets him in the top 40. I think that will secure his place in the top 40. Not sure he's going to be a first-round pick, and haven't felt that way at all at any point. But I think top 40 for him, so early second round, is probably the kind of range that he's going to go. Tonka Hemingway had a good set of tests. First of all, the size is a big thing because he's smaller, 284 pounds, just under 6'3", but 33-inch arms, so decent length for a smaller defensive tackle. He did have an impact for South Carolina. And to have a 32-inch vert and a 9-foot broad and a 4.48 short shuttle, they're good times for him. So I think he had a good day. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins has been getting a lot of love. I think, it's a bit of a mixed bag because he really should have been testing with the edge rushers at 276 pounds. And, it's a good short shuttle. It's a reasonable 3-cone. I mean, it's not a million miles away from Tonka Hemingway there. 36-inch vertical is fine for an edge rusher, as is a 10-4 broad. I mean, it's great compared to all the other defensive tackles, but he's not a defensive tackle. And neither is a 4.86 and a 1.69 split anything amazing at his size. So I think there's probably going to be people who overreact a little bit to what he did. But certainly, better to have a 4.34 than a 4.50 at his size. So I suppose there is that. Who else I want to talk about here? Didn't see a lot from Omar Norman Lott. JJ Pegues, a 5.15 at 309 pounds. It's good. It's not great. And not explosive in terms of a test. But moved around the field well during drills. Jordan Phillips did okay. 4.65. Short shuttle there, 312 pounds. Pretty good. Ty Robinson, that we mentioned here, just to confirm it, I mean, a 9.11 broad is really good for him. To go with the 33.5-inch vertical, 450 short shuttle, 483 40. Quickest in terms of miles per hour, 20.64 amongst defensive tackles. Really good from him. TJ Sanders was disappointed again. He had a poor Senior Bowl and then just didn't do anything that amazing. He just didn't stand out in any way out there in during the drills. And a 4.67 short shuttle, it's not the end of the world at 297 pounds. He has got good length. He is a decent pass rusher. He doesn't really have that much sand in his pants, which is a problem in terms of anchoring. But, he's somewhat explosive, somewhat agile, but he's not special. And he didn't run a 40, which is a shame. So I think second round for TJ Sanders rather than first. Nazir Stackhouse had a better than expected day because when you watch him on tape, he just looks like a big tub of goo who doesn't really do anything. And yet, watching him at the combine, I mean, he was in proportion. It didn't look like there was a lot of bad weight on him at all. He looked really slimline, in great shape. I mean, 327 pounds. He's not got the longest arms, obviously, just 32.5 inches, but, nearly 6'4", 327 pounds, running a 5.15. You don't expect someone to be explosive like that. I just thought he looked good. And then during the drills, he moved well. So if you're looking for somebody who's like a plus nose tackle, who's going to just do a couple of downs, I think someone like that, the way that he was moving today, I just thought 4th round pick. And, that's the kind of range where maybe the Seahawks could look for somebody like a defensive tackle in that range. So I thought he was impressive today, Nazir Stackhouse. I thought he was very, very good. And CJ West is someone I've not studied. I need to go and watch him. I think he did test well. A 4.95 40, 33-inch vertical at 316 pounds is very good. I thought during the drills, there were a couple of moments where you're like, not entirely sure here, but testing-wise, very, very good. And I've just seen the names here. So Deon Walker just looks ridiculous. I mean, he's still carrying far too much bad weight. And if you're going to have that much bad weight on your frame, don't wear the tightest vest that you can find at the combine. Have it ride up during every single thing that he did, whether he was running, jogging, everything. The bloody vest was riding up to unearth this Homer Simpson gut that he had underneath. And he kept having to pull down the top. And then he's got the thinnest legs in the world. He's 6'7", so he's going to struggle with leverage. He's got no base from which to attack from at the next level. And he looks like he's not taken anything seriously in terms of his diet and his conditioning. Because I'm sorry, like I know there's a lot of big guys in the NFL, but they don't look like this. And then he jumped to 25-inch vertical and an 8.8 broad. People were saying this guy was in the first round. This is the tough thing because this is not to say that I know more than other people. I definitely don't. But when you're watching tape of Kentucky, there's no point during last season did he look like a first round pick. And then you'd look at every bloody mock draft on the internet that have him in the first round. And it's only really been since the Senior Bowl that people have gone, yeah, he's not a first round pick. He'd never been a first round pick. You cannot take a player like this early. His conditioning's crap. His testing's crap. He's got no base. He's not for me. Tyleik Williams looked very thick, and he didn't do any testing, but he's 334 pounds at 6'2" and a bit. I thought he looked a little bit heavy for my liking. He's got big hands, strong. I thought he moved very, very well for his size, but I still think he's too big. If he's moving well at that size, he can drop 10 pounds and move even better. And there's definitely a player there. I think Tyleik Williams is going to be a second-round pick at least. And he's a terrific talent, but I just thought a little bit too heavy. But I did think despite being a bit too heavy, he still moved very, very well. And it would have been interesting to see, a 40 time, short shuttle time, 3-cone from him because he moved very, very well. On to the pass rushers. Oh, John Birch looked good. He slimmed down for this. What was he? 279, I think. Yep, 279. Looked very lean. Will probably play a bit bigger than this. But I thought he looked okay. 4.67, 40 is a good time for someone his size. Yep. Boston College, as I mentioned, 4.19, short shuttle, 6.94, 3-cone. Explosive testing's fine. Good day for him. Landon Jackson, we've talked about. That's a perfectly acceptable 40 time for him. At his size, what is he, 270? 264, but he'll probably play 270. 40.5-inch vertical, 10.9 broad, explosive, powerful, looks like a Terminator. If you painted him silver, he would literally look like a Terminator. And he's going to go earlier than people think. There are going to be some teams who definitely prefer Landon Jackson to the Mike Greens. Mike Green, who's got all these question marks off the field, and he's small and short-armed, didn't bother doing anything here, and decided to bugger off home after 2 days at the Senior Bowl, compared to Landon Jackson, who's stayed for the whole of the Senior Bowl, played his arse off, and has then come here and put on a relatively good show with explosive testing, and he's massive, and he looks like an NFL player. There are going to be some teams, like if you were to ask me, who does Mike Vrabel want for the Patriots moving forward? Does he want a Mike Green or does he want a Landon Jackson? He wants a Landon Jackson. So I'm just saying. Disappointed that we didn't see much of Savion Jones today. I'm really disappointed by that, but he's explosive. 33-inch vertical, 9.11 broad. Cal Kennard didn't do explosive testing. Ran better than expected. There was some talk that he might run a 4.9, but a 1.63 split and a 4.73 for him is good for him. We mentioned Oliver Oladejo, terrific in drills. Absolutely fantastic. We mentioned James Pierce. I thought Jack Sawyer looked really stiff during the workout, really stiff, and didn't obviously do any testing, but I thought he looked like a 3rd or 4th round pick today for me. I didn't think Nick Scorton looked very good either. Reasonable from Baron Sorrell, very reasonable across the board here in terms of all of his testing. Didn't see Josiah Stewart, big disappointment that. Shamar Stewart, we've talked about. Braden Swinson did the short shuttle at a 4.33 and a 7.13 3-cone. That's good for him. Would have been nice to see a 40. Would have been nice to see a 10-yard split. Would have been nice to see some explosive jumps, but it's such a powerful player, good player. And, those times, they're not amazing. They're not like, wow, get him in the top 20. We massively underestimated his stock because the tape's great. Is this now going to have the testing that's great? Testing's not great. Testing's good. So maybe I've got him in the right kind of range at around 50, maybe just a bit earlier than that. But that feels about right for him. Princely Uman Mielen, a bit of a mixed bag from him. Looks the part in terms of the size. Explosive testing. A 1.62 short shuttle is pretty good at 244 pounds. Not amazing because he's lighter. You'd want to see an elite 1.5 split at that size. And again, short shuttle, not amazing, but not terrible. And then David Walker, just a power machine. Really small, short, totally the opposite of a prototype for an NFL pass rusher, but just a really hardened player. And then obviously the linebackers. It's a good time for Eugene Asante. Good time for Jeffrey Basser. Teddy Buchanan. I like some of what he shows on tape. I don't know if he's an NFL starter. He's the kind of guy that you take later on, and he could emerge into that. Liked his tape. Thought he was good and strong in the tackle. I'm not surprised by a 14th vertical because of that. Jihad Campbell, we'll talk a bit more about in a bit. Jay Higgins did not test well as expected. I thought Shamar James had tested a bit better than that. Demetrius Knight, we've talked about, did well. Nick Martin did very well. Did very, very well. He's somebody who, if he can stay healthy, could be interesting later on in the draft. Smail Monda got hit in the face by a football. Not amazing testing for him because he is 224. So as a linebacker, you'd want to see faster times than that. Carson Schwessinger didn't do anything apart from a jump because of a hamstring issue, apparently. So we didn't see much from him. And Danny Stutzman, that's a good time for him. It's a good time for Danny Stutzman. He's 233. He's kind of a lunge pell kind of player. And, not spectacular vertical 34 inches. But, there's a player in there. It's hard to work out with the limited testing info that we have what kind of range he's going to go in. But he's a good player, and that's a solid 40 time for him at 233. So, that's what I'm thinking in terms of all of that. If you have any more questions via Super Chat, send them in because I'm going to move on to a couple of other things that I want to talk about. And I can come back to any of the stuff we've seen today if you want to. If you've got any questions about that, if you want any comments, send your Super Chats in. I'll get into that. But there's a couple of other things I wanted to talk about. The first one is what this all means. It's one day of the combine. There's a few things that are going to be impacted here that I want to talk about, what it might mean for the Seahawks in terms of how this draft is going to shape out. And I think I'm probably going to try and use one of the simulators to sort of explain what I'm thinking here. So while I'm just sort of pulling this up, here we go. Right. So pick all of the teams, enter solo draft. And then I need to share the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of talk you through what I'm thinking. So I'm not going to do a simulation because none of these simulators have got it right in terms of their rankings. But I'm sort of going to talk you through what I think is going to happen. So, the big news in terms of injuries has been that does Abdul Carter need surgery? Does he not need surgery? How is that going to impact the first round? I don't think it's going to impact it much at all. And I think the Titans are still going to take him. I don't think if you like Abdul Carter enough to take him first overall, this injury news, it's not like he's torn his ACL or his Achilles has fallen off or his head's fallen off. He may need surgery down the line. I don't think it's enough to not take him at number one. So you've got that there. Adam Schefter said yesterday that the Browns are taking a quarterback, in his opinion, at number two. So even if they do end up getting Kirk Cousins, that's what he said. I don't know if that is a quid pro quo, and boy, the quid pro quo things happen. We've been seeing it for the last 2 days. It may be he may be doing the bidding of somebody to try and maybe it's even for the Titans. Maybe the Titans said, "Look, put out that the Browns are going to draft a quarterback here because if anybody wants Cam Ward, they need to trade up to number one, and we want to trade down." I would not be shocked if that is what is at play here. There's a very, very good chance that that's what that could be. But for now, I'm going to take Schefter on his word and put Cam Ward there. The Giants would then take Travis Hunter, in my opinion, based on this. And rather than go and take Shedeur Sanders, I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to go as early as some think. And all signs seem to be pointing at the moment. There's a reasonable chance that Matt Stafford's going to leave the Rams. So if the Giants acquire Matt Stafford, they don't need to take a quarterback at number 3 anyway. New England at number 4. I think right now, this is as of today, I still think Tyler Warren, you've just watched Tyler Warren be the BFF for Drew Aller at Penn State. And Drew Aller and Drake May are similar players. So go and fix your offensive line in free agency. Go and draft Tyler Warren. We know that Josh McDaniels can do a good job with the tight end because he did it with Rob Gronkowski. I think that could be a match made in heaven for Drake May. So I think that's where they're going to go. And I do think there is a chance that Mason Graham will fall. I mean, he has short arms. He's about 290 pounds. I've never really listened to him speak. I've watched 2 interviews with him this week, and he is not the most dynamic character. He's a good football player. I remember a year ago, everyone saying Mason Graham is basically like Byron Murphy, but a little bit of a better version. And yet this year didn't have the same pass rush win percentages that Murphy had. And he's done no testing here. And he is like a shorter, stubbier version. So I'm not sure what to make of Graham anymore. I love his tape. I think there's definitely some value to be had with him. I thought it was interesting that the Jaguars head coach was the first one on the NFL Network today, and the first thing he started talking about was potentially trying to trade down. So I think there's probably everybody in the top 5 trying to trade down at this point. I just don't think they see the value up there at the top, and they all want to kind of move down. And that's why I'm a bit suspicious of the Schefter report about the Browns and the quarterback, because I think everybody wants to move down. But if they have to make a pick, then maybe they'll just take a shot on Mason Graham. Now, I tell you who I would be taking a shot on if I had to. I think you're just going to play the hand that you're dealt. And for me, Ashton Jeanty is the best player in the draft. Ashton Jeanty is the most talented pound-for-pound player in the draft. It's not Abdul Carter, it's Ashton Jeanty. It's not Travis Hunter, it's Ashton Jeanty. So I would have no issue taking him early. Like I say, you have to play the hand you're dealt. There's no point avoiding that pick because he's a running back. You've got to take the best players. And if the Raiders can get a Sam Darnold with Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty, that's an offense that can win you some football games. So that's what I've got the Raiders doing here at number 6. Jets number 7. I'm going to have them taking Colston Loveland. Everybody is grading him in the top 10 or 12 players in the draft. He is definitely. I bet there are some teams that have him ahead of Tyler Warren in terms of talent. The NFL will love this guy. He's not working out because of a shoulder injury this week at the Combine. But I just think he's such an unbelievably talented player who got lost in the wash a bit because of Michigan's terrible offense last year. He's such a good player. I see him going to number 7 to the Jets here, and I don't see him getting out of the top 10. Unless the injury is more serious than we currently know. And then Panthers number 8. I was watching a interview with Jalen Walker with Mike Florio and Chris Sims, and he's kind of like a poor man's Abdul Carter, and I just think that teams are going to love everything about his personality. And yeah, there is some misgivings about him disappearing for a few games last season, but I think it's not an amazing draft. There's not a lot of value here. So I think you take your chance on someone that's going to be an immediate leader. He's massively well respected at Georgia. I know that. And I could see him going in this kind of range there. Number 9, New Orleans. So talking to people who are impressive, I don't know if you guys watched J.D. Barron. I don't know where they listed him here. I don't know if you watched the interview that he did with Pro Football Talk. It is unbelievable. The guy teams are just going to love him so much. So much. He says he's doing everything at the Combine. So if he runs well, tests well, drills are good, he has every chance of going in the top 10. I've been high on Barron. I wrote about him a few months ago. Been high on Barron for a while. But, versatile, dynamic, plays run support very, very well. I think he's the next Cooper DeJean. It's a trendy league. Head coach of the Saints. Just seeing what Cooper DeJean can do in Philadelphia. I think there's a chance here that he goes in the top 10. And again, when you're faced with not a great draft class, you're going to end up taking the guys who are high character, high football character, very athletic and playmakers, and that's what J.D. Barron is. Number 10, I am not a big Will Campbell fan. I thought he played badly last year for LSU. I don't think either of the tackles played well for LSU. If you actually go on the LSU forums, they spent a large part of last season saying that Will Campbell was crap. And he was. I did not think he played well at all. He didn't grade well as well. It's not just me. PFF didn't think he was very good. I think he's going to test brilliantly if he does work out the Combine, because everyone's been expecting him to test brilliantly forever. And if he does that, then he's got a chance of going early. short arms though, and it's like where the Bears going to play him? You know, they play him at guard and at tackle. Do you start him at tackle and then give him a chance to make that work, and then kick him inside if it doesn't? You know, I've seen Taylor Decker got the longest arms in the world. Ben Johnson maybe going to sort of seem like that. Decker was a better player though. I don't know. I'm not a huge Will Campbell guy. Everybody seems to think he's going to go in this range, so it's a mock. It's not my grades. San Francisco at number 11. Based on what we saw today, I think James Pierce is going to go early, and he may go a bit earlier than this. You could see him at Carolina, Saints, Bears even. You could see him going earlier than this after the way he tested today, but I've just got a feeling the Niners are going to really go after the defensive line in this draft, because that's how they built the foundation last time. And they've only got really Nick Bosa left now, so I think they've got to draft some defensive linemen. Number 12, I don't know why this has suddenly popped up, but everyone's saying Amarian Hampton's going to go in the first round. Everybody's saying that. Like, all of the insiders are saying he's going to go in the first round. Everyone's sort of suddenly decided he's a top player. And yeah, I mean, this seems to be just something that's trending that way. And so there's no point fighting it. That's what everyone's saying. So maybe there's something in it. Dolphins at number 13. Don't know if they'll go offensive line, despite that being their needs. People I respect who follow the Dolphins are not sure they'll go O-line. But if he lasts this far, I'm a member. It's a good scheme fit. He's expected to test well. So that could easily be the pick that they go for there. Indianapolis, there's a bit of doubt about Will Johnson in certain coverage situations. I think he lasts 18, he'd be a great pick for the Seahawks. Great character guy. Not anyone you're going to have to worry about. Will be a really good pick for the Colts at 14. I think with the way that Jihad Campbell performed today, I think there's every chance he's going to go in this range. And I was talking to Jeff Simmons yesterday, and he sort of threw out Atlanta as a suggestion, and I agree with him. I think it's a very good suggestion there. By the way, the Falcons have only sent their defensive coaches to the combine, and they're only interviewing defensive players. I mean, they've telegraphed that they are focusing on defense, and if they get to this kind of range, Jihad Campbell's probably going to be the best player available, and that's what Terry Fontenot, their GM, tends to do. Tends to go for best player available. Tyler Booker to Arizona here. Again, I think it's just the best. I mean, he's their 16th graded player here. They're picked 16th. For me, Tyler Booker is one of the best players in the draft. And again, you're talking about not a great draft at the top end. High character, aggressive, physical. Most of the staff come from the Eagles. They've succeeded because they built up the trenches. It's just a safe quality pick, this, for the Cardinals. And then Cincinnati at 17, there's all these kind of character issues about Mike Green, and I'm not going to dismiss them. I tend to think sometimes there's no smoke without fire, and until there's evidence to suggest anything, I'm not going to have an opinion on any of that stuff. But what I do know is that the Bengals, of all the franchises in the NFL, have been the ones who've been willing to turn a blind eye to stuff like that. So I've got them taking Mike Green at number 17. So that leaves the Seahawks. And this is why I wanted to do this. It was not to give you a name of like, I think the Seahawks are going to do this at 18. It was to really show you what I think could happen and then sort of ponder the options for the Seahawks, because I don't think John Schneider is going to take Shedeur Sanders in a million years. I just do not. I don't see that as a fit at all. I don't I mean, maybe Tatiro McMillan would be best player available here. I'm not sure that they'll view it that way. I think he's a little bit overrated. I like him as a player. I think he's the 6th overall prospect, like they're suggesting here. I don't think that. Michael Williams, poor pass rush win percentage, hasn't stayed healthy. To me, just feels like, and what is he? Because he's not big, and yet he's not a dynamic outside linebacker edge. I kind of just wonder, is he shown enough? And didn't do any testing today. Has he shown enough to warrant taking in the first round? I'm not sure right now. I don't think he's shown enough, either on the field or in terms of testing. So let's see what he does at the pro day. But I'm not sure that you can justify that. Malachi Starks, I don't think is a top 25 player based on what he showed last season. He had a terrible 2024 season after a decent start, then fell apart. I rewatched Kelvin Banks last week. I'm not sure that he's a scheme fit kicking inside to guard for Seattle after all. I think he's probably a right tackle in the next level. I don't know. I mean, you could make an argument for that. I think Luther Burden's really, really good. He could be best player available, but everybody seems to be talking about him as a second round player at the moment. And then I'm looking down, and I don't think Nick Emenwari warrants 18. I don't think you take Josh Simmons because he's a tackle only prospect. I just don't see the Seahawks taking Walter Nolan. He didn't do any testing today. I don't think Kenneth Grant is the guy. He didn't do anything today. I just watch it. I want to see more aggression on tape. I don't think they're going to have. If you draft two defensive tackles at 16 and 18 in back-to-back years, it becomes a real pain in the arse to pay them both if they both succeed. And great. If they both succeed, amazing. But it can be tricky that. And I'm not sure they're going to go for another defensive tackle in round one. So you kind of see the point I'm getting at here. There's not. You can talk yourself into certain players. I mean, look, Shamar Stewart. People go, "Oh, take Shamar Stewart." Yeah, maybe. But you're taking him for the athleticism, and that's the thing that people are going to have to be careful about here. Like, he ran well today and he jumped well, but we all knew he was going to run well and jump well. You can't give him that twice, so you can't pump him up today because we knew he was going to test well. It's not a surprise. The tape's still the tape. Is it a calculated risk at 18? Maybe it is. Can Mike McDonald develop him? Yeah. Is he someone I'm running to the podium for at 18? I'm not sure. I'm not sure the Seahawks will feel that either. And Gray Zabel's a great scheme fit, but is he worth the 18th overall pick? It becomes tough there. And I'm not sure that there's any players. Maybe some teams would move up for a Kenneth Grant, a Walter Nolan, Shador. Maybe. But then how much is someone paying to move up for Shador? How far are you dropping back? McMillan, maybe. Maybe because Williams is the last sort of certain player of a certain level that they try and get above the books for them. That's the point I'm making. I'm not giving you a name right now. I'm just saying, who do you take in this situation? Because I'd be very interested in Tyler Booker, even if it's not the most obvious scheme fit. I think they just need somebody like him. Somebody who's really good on the offensive line and a leader and aggressive and physical. I'd take Jihad Campbell. I'd take Will Johnson. They go off the board straight before Seattle pick. I'd take Aman Membu. They've all gone just before Seattle's pick. So he's got the potential to be quite frustrating that. And sort of working out in this scenario who would be best player available is tricky. And how would you feel if they took another receiver here? I wouldn't be that happy about it if you want to build a tough physical football team. But what if they're best player available? And that is the problem. That's the problem. So anyway, I just wanted to run that. I don't want to press anybody. But that's just my thoughts at 3 o'clock in the morning after watching the first day of the combine. So I've got another super chat. This one from Taker610 says, let's use first and second round picks on interior offensive line. It'd be tough to find an interior offensive line in round 2 worthy of it unless players fall unexpected like a Zabel. But I don't think you can draft your way to success on the offensive line. I think that time was probably 2022. Like when they drafted Abe, Lucas, and Charles Cross, if they had then drafted another young offensive lineman and built a young line then, and now 3 years down the line, you were feeling the benefit of that, that's understandable. I think now it's about, you've got to get proven talent in. You've got to get proven quality players in. And if you ain't going to get Drew Dolman, I think they're going to go all in on Drew. I think they're really going to try and push the boat out to get Drew Dolman. I've been saying that for weeks. But if he's going to get $20 million a year, I'm not sure if they're going to go that far. So then maybe you pivot to Ryan Kelly, and I'd be fine with that, as long as you go and get somebody later on to be the heir apparent, because Ryan Kelly might not be able to last. And listen, if they overpaid for Ryan Kelly and Kevin Zeitler at this point, it wouldn't bother me, because they need to do something. They need a bit of proven quality up there. I don't think Kevin Zeitler's going to come to the West Coast and play for Seattle at his age. But I think if you were willing to pay a bit more to make sure you get players like that, yeah, they're old, but you know what they can do. And it does feel as if the Seahawks are lacking that bit of nous, that little bit of grit, that bit of experience on the line. And yeah, they're older players, but if you could get two of them, then you can justify, like, maybe you do draft Gray Zabel at 18 or after trading down. And you say, okay, we don't mind putting a rookie on that line and starting because he's got two greybeards next to him. Or it is Tyler Booker or Armand Membu. Or maybe it's somebody else completely. Maybe you wait and you take Clay Webb, who I really like, a bit later on. Maybe you can do that instead. You've kind of got to think a little bit outside the box, these things, because I kind of want free agency to start tomorrow. I want it to start tomorrow. I want to know what the Seahawks can do on the offensive line. They've got to do something. They have to do something. Larry sent a super chat in saying, Rayshon Jenkins allowed to look for a new team. Heard that Nick Emenwari met with the Seahawks. Will they take him at 18, shades of Hamilton? Well, I think he is more like Kyle Hamilton than Cam Chancellor, as I was saying earlier. What I would say is, like, I really wouldn't pay attention to who the Seahawks or anybody is meeting with at the combine. Like, teams meet with so many players at the combine. It's never been a way of hats being tipped in the way of who teams might be drafting. It just isn't. Like, it's all about sort of data gathering at this point. You meet a whole bunch of players at the Senior Bowl, and if you've met players at the Senior Bowl, you know you're probably not going to meet them again now. So it's like, right, who didn't we meet at the Senior Bowl? And like your 5 main targets might be at the Senior Bowl, and you've interviewed them there. So then you go on and interview everybody else who you didn't interview at the Senior Bowl at the Combine, and that can kind of how it is. The one thing, and I always kind of find it funny that it happens every single year. You have all of the beat reporters from all the different teams going around like, did you meet with the Steelers? Did you meet with the Seahawks? Did you meet with the Ravens? And the players just get asked a million questions about this. And you think, oh, my word, stop asking them about this stuff, because it doesn't matter. And maybe it makes for a spicy tweet or an article or a radio segment or something to say, this guy met with the Seahawks. Is he going to be their pick? It really doesn't mean anything at the Combine. Like, the official 30 visits, that means something. That's the thing to sort of worth paying attention to. This, not so much. Could they take Nick Emenwari at 18? As I said earlier, I think it's a bit too rich for me, that. I do like him a lot as a player. I like him more than Malachi Starks. And he is big, and he can be versatile and do a lot of different things for you. I just think in an ideal world, you want other players to be available to you at 18. And yeah, I just think he's probably more of a later first than 18th overall. But he could be an option. He could be an option because I think he can do a Kyle Hamilton role. I just don't think he's great athleticism, good range, but there are some sort of little flaws to his game as well that I just don't think he's a game changer at 18. I don't think if you put Nick Emenwari on the Seahawks next year, you're suddenly going to be like, wow, oh yes, here we go. That's things moving. I do think you could have that with a Tyler Booker, Jihad Campbell, Will Johnson, Armand Membu, James Pierce, Jahdae Barron, Jalen Walker, the 2 tight ends. You know, Genty even. If Genty lasts at 18, you have to take him. By the way, I've been thinking about this a lot. I know that you've got to trade one of the 2 guys, and you're going to put him in there. He's just too good. He ain't going to last 18. He's too bloody good. Anyway, if you have any more super chats, send them in. I've done an hour of a solo stream at 3:00 in the morning. So if you appreciate that, super chat away, questions. Otherwise, I'm going to end on this. While the Combine was going on, I don't know if this was a pre-recorded thing or if they did it live, but the Seahawks GM John Schneider went on 710 Seattle Sports again and revealed that he will meet tomorrow with Geno Smith's representatives. And so the couple of quotes, first from Brady Henderson. He said that Schneider said, "We hope to get an extension with Geno. Geno knows he's our guy. We love him and we want to keep going forward." And then Michael Sean Dugar, I've not listened to this interview, which is why I'm quoting these quotes. Michael Sean Dugas said, John Schneider said on Seattle Sports that their meeting Friday with Geno Smith's agent will be where we find out what he's thinking in terms of salary expectations. So tomorrow's a big day because the Seahawks have kind of laid the cards on the table here. They've said numerous times. It's a very different messaging to a year ago when they basically said Geno Smith's the starter until he's not. Isn't Drew Lock great and all of this stuff? It did very much feel like there was a clear message being sent there that they don't necessarily believe in Geno Smith and they'd be quite willing to part. And yet, the messaging this year is very, very positive, but they've got to go and have that meeting tomorrow. And I'm just saying, I think if Geno Smith is reasonable and they can come to some reasonable agreement, then they can get the compromise deal done that can be signed next week. Lower the cap hit, move forward. If they turn up tomorrow and Geno Smith says Matt Stafford's asking for $50 million a year and I want that, then this is going to turn very, very quickly. And the messaging of he's our guy, is going to turn to we're going to let him do what Matt Stafford's doing currently and go and see what's out there. That'll happen if they can't come to a compromise agreement. So let's see what kind of move Geno Smith's in. Because if he is willing to compromise, then... But what does compromise mean? Well, from compromise means Geno Smith getting a bit more money in his pocket this year, but the cap hit coming down and the Seahawks having an ability to move on in 12 months if they want to. That's what it has to be. And if Geno Smith doesn't like that, then I'm afraid that's tough tit because Matt Stafford's won a Super Bowl. Matt Stafford was a few plays away from beating the Eagles in Philadelphia in the snow in the playoffs. Geno Smith, it's not his fault that the Seahawks weren't in the playoffs. He bears some responsibility for that. It's not totally on the offensive line. But he can't expect to go and ask for the same money as Matt Stafford or Kirk Cousins. I mean, that's a disaster. No one should be asking for Kirk Cousins money because Kirk Cousins was an epic disaster. So the Seahawks have to have the ability to have an out, especially if their intention is to draft a quarterback this year. And it's been my feeling for a long time that they will draft a quarterback in the draft this year on day 2. I think they will. So it's up to Geno Smith whether he wants to negotiate. Now, I imagine that what has happened for the last 24 hours is probably that Geno Smith's people have been told, go and see what's out there. And that's not been made public in the way that it has with Matt Stafford, but go and see what kind of contracts offers are out there. Go and see what kind of interest there is in your client. I bet the permission has been granted for that on the quiet. Because without that information, Geno Smith doesn't really know what to go and ask for. And if they go out and ask and talk and find out there's no contract on the table there that is going to pay him 45, 50, whatever he's maybe sort of wanting in an ideal world, there's no point asking the Seahawks for that. And the Seahawks will know whether he's in that kind of a ballpark range. So you get that information at the combine. You then have a conversation tomorrow, having done the information gathering. Both sides will have done that. That's whether you can thrash out a compromise. And it may be that Geno Smith and his representatives, having got that information, they can come to a pretty quick agreement here to get an extension done. And I still think that's what will ultimately happen, that there will be a compromise agreement. But if they turn up tomorrow and are unreasonable, and if they ask for too much money, it'll be, they will make him available. And we'll see what happens after that. So I know there's a lot of talk now, and people will latch on to the he's our guy talk and all of this, and without a doubt. And I think they're doing that for a reason. I think it's a good faith. Let's make him know we want him here, as they were doing with Drew Lock a year ago, by the way. And that's an important point to make. They kept saying Drew Lock, like Drew Lock, and I think there was a lot of that to try and get him on board a year ago. And that's why they talked about Drew Lock rather than Geno Smith as much, because they wanted Lock in to be the backup / competition. And then we lost him then to go and make the Sam Howell trade. I don't think they wanted to do that ideally. I think they wanted Lock back to compete with Geno, knowing that Geno would probably win the job. And I think now what you've got is they're trying to butter Geno up the way they tried to butter Drew Lock up. And we'll see if it works. Because if Geno really was their guy, this would have got done by now. They would have just got, if they, all of this talk was going, Geno's guy is definitely the guy. If they wanted to give him $45 million a year, this would have been done by now. So the Seahawks are like, yeah, we want to keep Geno, but on our terms. And now it's whether Geno Smith will agree to those terms. I don't know if he will. That's what tomorrow's a big day. And things will turn very, very quickly. But the Seahawks don't want them to turn quickly because I think they know they're not going to be in the Sam Darnold market. I don't think they want to get into that. I don't think they want to go in the Kirk Cousins route. I don't think they want to be scrambling around for a Daniel Jones or whoever, or trying to find trades like the Sam Howell one to get a starter in. I think they just want to keep Geno Smith as the bridge and just have some continuity there. And that's what Mike McDonald wants. So that's what it's all about. That is what it's all about. It's about preserving the status quo as a bridge rather than going into the massive unknown that is a Daniel Jones-led Seahawks or something like that. That's what this is all about. Setting up the future. And the Seahawks want to do that. And that's why they want to keep Geno Smith. So we'll see. We'll see if they're prepared to come to some kind of compromise here. Tomorrow is a big day. And I do think they're going to draft a quarterback still. I do think that's the point. I think it's about getting Geno back, reasonable contract. Then I think also some of this messaging, he's our guy. I think they want to announce him to a 2-year, 3-year extension with outs, which will not be made public, but it will be kind of in the contract. There's outs. Curtis will probably dig around. Yep, they can get out of this next year, stuff like that. And that's what they want. They want to announce it. And a big press conference next week. Geno Smith's back. He's our guy. He can win a championship with him. He's a franchise quarterback. He's top 10. And the point of that is, of course, smokescreen, misdirection. Because they want Geno to be the bridge. And then I think they want to draft somebody. And it's all a big game, isn't it? So that's what I think is going to happen here. But I think it's interesting. And I think we'll know a bit more tomorrow. Anyway, the super chats have stopped. And for that reason, having done an hour and 7 minutes, I am going to stop as well because it is 3:18 in the morning. And I've still got to write my article reviewing the day. So I'm going to go and do that. Check out SeahawksDraftBlog.com because that will be up very shortly. Tomorrow, again, we will have, it's been a very active thread on the day of the combine. So join in the comment section on SeahawksDraftBlog.com on the open thread that will be on there. I'll write a few thoughts tomorrow about sort of thinking ahead of the day tomorrow, which is defensive backs and tight ends. So I'll chuck that out there. I will do another solo live stream at about this time tomorrow when the combine finishes. So when the NFL Network coverage comes to the end, like 5 minutes later, I'll jump on a live stream and do another one of these on a solo mission. And then Saturday and Sunday, hopefully Robbie Williams will be with us. So join us for that. And at the end of every day, I am going to go and do the write-up now. So I'll put that up on as soon as possible. So check out SeahawksDraftBlog.com for that. Appreciate all the people who sent into the super chats. Appreciate everybody who watches this live and supports SeahawksDraftBlog.com or this channel is much appreciated. If you haven't subscribed yet, bang as a subscription. I want to try and get up towards 10,000 before the draft. I don't think we're going to get there, but we can do if you all subscribe. And again, I always say about half of you don't subscribe who listens. So if you could do that, that'd be much appreciated. Give the video a like. Do us a favor. Go into the comment section. Leave a comment, even if it's just to say go Hawks, because it helps get the video out there. It always helps to do that. So if you could do that, it'd be much appreciated. Like as well will be much appreciated too. I'll see you on the stream tomorrow. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for an article coming up very, very shortly. Until tomorrow, bye for now. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.